Hi, everybody. This is Jecobie Jones with Faithful Life Ministries, and I want to welcome you to another edition of Mail Call. That's right. Welcome to the mail room. And this week we're going to go into another edition or another section of our Men in series, and this one is titled Men in Politics. That's right. So this week we're going to just go ahead and explore why is it important for men to be involved in politics? What benefits does it have for the man to be in the politics, and how does it affect him as a man and his position? So first off, just like to thank everybody for your support and checking out the content. I'm just kind of working to get better, just taking baby steps. I'm just learning, just trying to get in there. It's been real supportive and real positive and encouraging to see, people checking it out and the positive feedback I get for it. So big appreciation to you guys for viewing the content. Without further ado, just get that out of the way. I want to talk about men in politics. Okay, so we all know. There's pretty not too many people in the United States who hadn't been caught up in the political whirlwind that's been going on in the last few years, really since Trump was in office about 4 years ago. And but the thing about it is most of it has been focused on presidential elections. You get some light that's been shed on, senators and representatives, but uh, a lot of stuff is lost when you think about politics. For the most part, for the average person, right? Um, and particularly, in minority communities, it's not really a big talked about topic. It's not something that most people spend their time talking about and then going over and discussing, right? So, the big overall value and importance of being involved in politics is kind of lost on a large segment of people. So, um, why did I choose this as a topic to be made? Because you got to think about, politics and our elected officials, uh, they play a big part in our experience here in America. How you experience your life in your city, how you experience your life in the states, how you experience your life just from a national standpoint. And while it would be easy to just kind of go over um, more of the national politics like presidential, state or representative, I'm going to focus more so on the local politics, which is something that's really not really been discussed, and it kind of slips through and falls through the cracks. So why is local politics a big deal? Well, for one, your local politics that's really how uh, your life, your experience, and your communities are developed, how your communities are managed, maintained, and how your communities are protected. Uh, so a lot of stuff that's happening in these communities, like when you look at, let's just take what's going on in Minnesota right now. So you have a lot of people that has a hand in the relationship between the police and the community. So you have the mayor who's responsible, who's an elected official. You have the chief of police who's an elected official, and you have the judge who's an elected official, and you have the um, prosecutor or the district attorney who is an elected official. Now, why is that a big deal? Because number one, the police sets the tone for the police department. Mayor sets the expectation. So let me just start from the top. The mayor sets the expectations for the police force. The chief of police sets the tone for the police workers at large. The judge dotes out the justice, and the district attorney is the one who litigates on behalf of justice. So, and that's justice for or against the people, right? He could, and it was just whoever's on trial against the city, right? So whoever the officers or the police department brings before the court, the district attorney's job is to um, argue for those charges before the judge. So again, why is that important? Because when you look at it, right? Let's just kind of take what's going on with George. Let's just back up and let's talk about George Floyd. Right, that's a big topic. That's real easy. That's low hanging fruit. We can just kind of pick that apart. So when you look at it, you say, okay, who all has a responsibility to move on and pick up the pieces. Well, first off, you have the chief of police, which the chief of police did pretty good. He stepped in. He talked about, the what they taught, how they felt as a police department versus what the officer did. So the chief of police comes in. He establishes the tone, right? He comes in and says, "We will do this as a department. We won't do this as a department," right? And so his job is to ensure that the officers are lock in step with how he feels the department should be represented, right? Uh, and also you look at the district attorney, right? Who is the one who demands justice on behalf of the citizens of the city and the city, right? So the district attorney can say, okay, we know about this case. We feel like this case. We feel like it's a prosecutable offense. They don't want to hide the police officers. They feel like there should be some disciplinary action or charges brought against them. And so the district attorney is there to represent the people and its citizens in the city and go after them, right? And then you have the judges. So the judge is there to be an impartial decision maker on when he hears the case. He's supposed to be able to listen to both sides fairly and make a ruling based off of suggestions of the jury, or if it doesn't go to jury and the district attorney offers some charges, or says, hey, look, this is what we want to charge him with, this is what we recommend the sentencing to be, and the judge is to take that into consideration and is at his discretion to either uphold or enforce more time within the reasonable sentencing, what's the word, I guess the sentencing length, like say 2 to 10, 2 to 20, whatever the case may be, or to just reduce it. He can say, well, we'll give him light, we'll give him leniency, or whatever. That's his discretion, right? And so, with that being said, these are all elected officials. So when you have a country, when you have a town or a city who feels like justice isn't getting done, right? It's on the citizens of that city to come together and to call upon their elected officials to govern the city on their behalf, right? So the elected officials in that town are supposed to be a reflection of the citizens in that city. Let that sink in for a minute. So if you have legal situations in a city and you have a large group of people who feel like the outcome of that legal situation was unfair or it was unjust, then you have to think about who were the elected officials representing when they handled that case or they handled that matter, that situation. And so that's where we come in as being men in politics, because we're called to lead out. We have a responsibility to lead out, and we have to be involved in politics. So when we see a judge coming up for election, we have personal stake in what type of judge it is, what's his beliefs, where does he stand, what side of the aisle he's on. Regardless of your political stance, you may be Democrat, Republican, or Independent. But does that judge represent you? Does he represent your beliefs? Does he represent the beliefs in your community, in your city? Does he represent your demographic? And so you have to invest in that. And if there's not one, then you have to search for one and see if you can convince them to run out of any possible candidate. Same with district attorney. Is that district attorney capable of ruling fairly and meting out justice fairly for the people in that city? Does he represent your interests? Does he represent? Does he identify with the citizens across the board, or does he lean to one side of the fence or another? Same with the chief of police. Does the chief of police genuinely care about all citizens in the country or a certain demographic of the citizens in that city? So as well as the mayor. Does the mayor care holistically about all of the citizens in the city, or is it just talk? What's the mayor's background? And so those aren't just the only elected positions, but you have city managers, You have people sit on city council. You have board of educators that have a large um, stake in you and your family's experience in that town. And so, as men, you have to think about that. You have to think about what's the quality of life, whole all the way around, right? Not just me just getting a job or me ducking the police. Whole total quality of life in the city. Are the streets safe for me and my family during the day and at nighttime? Are the school systems adequate so that my kids can get a quality education? Not only my kids, but my neighbors' kids, the kids in our community, kids in our city. Are they getting adequate information? Uh, how's the money in the city being spent? Do we have the correct amount of police to do proper policing? Uh, do we have the correct amount of money in the budget? The budget going to where we have the correct amount of firemen and firewomen out to be able to respond to emergencies in the city, in the communities, and they're not having a shortage. Are there enough programs in the city to address the main major issues in the city? And you have to play a part of your be involved in that. It's a little tedious, but you have to carefully go through and sift and sort through, and you have to make sure that you're involved in that and that you understand who does what and where they stand on what they do. And if you can't find any representative, you don't find anybody to represent you, then it's on you to get together with your community, go around, talk to people, go to these town hall meetings, talk to people, get people involved, get other men involved, mainly the men, because women do a pretty good job being involved. But the men should be strong enough men to where they can talk to other men and they can have a conversation, an equal conversation with the women as well, and listen to their opinions and their voices and respect them enough to carry their opinion and their voice along with yours with a sound decision to your elected officials and to be able to demand that they represent you and your community, your family, your friends, and your circle. You have to be involved in that. That's amazing because, again, like I said, that heavily um, determines your quality of life in the city. Now, I strongly believe had more people been involved in local politics and city politics, um, the situations that's going on today, going on right now, they wouldn't be existing on this level, on this scale. Because when you think about it, now I don't expect Joe Biden, who's the current president. I'm not picking on him. I'm just saying like I don't expect the president to reach all the way down as a leader into a city to be able to change the heartbeat of that city. It's levels to the game, right? First, it's the mayor of the city. The mayor of the city has to have control of the city, and he has to place demands and hold uh, the elected officials below him accountable for their positions, for the responsibilities and duties of their positions. Then when you get above that, then it goes up a little bit higher, right? You have the lieutenant governor and the governor who has to manage areas, and we have representatives. And so then you start getting into really more state politics. That's a little bit up. That's again, that's something else that'll take a long discussion. But once the city and the county can't get under control, then it goes up a level, right? Then you get to, the state politics. Then after that, once if it's a problem is statewide and the governors can't handle it, and the state politicians can't handle it, that's when it comes to the president's table and you talk about it. But like I said, in the city, then that's something that the community needs to come together and demand that their elected officials do something about it. If not, then you use your voting power to change the elected officials to put somebody in office that will do something about it, that will make change happen. And I guarantee you, that type of attitude, that type of behavior will not persist. When you look at the educational numbers and you see that the schools are underperforming, the public schools are underperforming, you shouldn't have to send your kids to private school for them to get a quality education. It's the public school system has a responsibility to give every one of its students um, proper, good, quality education, and you have to demand that they do so. You have to hold the Board of Education responsible. When they can't be responsible, then you escalate it up a level. You take it to the city council. The city council can't hold it accountable. You take it up a level. You take it to the mayor. But these are all elected officials. If they can't do the job you elected them to do, then you have to elect new ones. But you have to pay attention, because if you're not voting, you can't say they're not representing you. They're representing those who voted. So that's why I say you have to be involved, especially minority men. Especially minority men. When you look at a city and say, hey, well, I mean, they're not doing anything for us. We're not getting, you got to look at it across the board. Who are they doing stuff for? Right? Who's having a better quality of life in your city? And then you look at that demographic of people. Then you look at the elected officials that are in office, and you see who they represent. You know why? Because they voted for them, and they hold the people that they vote for accountable. Why? Because they're involved. That's the only difference. I'm not going to play into race. I'm not going to make it a racial issue. I'm just going to make a plain statement. People do what they're held accountable to do. That's just it. If you allow people to do a certain thing, then that's what happens. These are like I said, these are elected officials, and it takes your involvement to change the climate and to change the attitude and behaviors of those that are in the community. And if you look around, you look on TV, you'll see that people of all colors are fighting for the same issue. I saw just as many whites and Latinos and Asians fighting for rights, standing in line with Black Lives Matter as I did with black people. So we can't just make it like that we're the only ones that care. So that's encouraging to know that there's enough people that are like-minded, that believe in fair, equal justice, that believe in fairness across the board, regardless of color, regardless of religion, that can stand side to side, shoulder to shoulder, and demand that people be treated fairly in a city, that people be treated fairly in a state, and that people are treated fairly in a nation. And so it's going to take men to get more involved in politics in order to change the climate. Once you change the climate, you change the overall quality of life in your communities, and then you change the quality of life in your state, and collectively we change the quality of life in the nation. But until we can voice our opinion and with an educated decision that we've made, and we made it from based off of our experiences, make it clearly how we feel, what we expect, and just to make it across the board, then people will hear you, then people will understand you, people will receive you, and then people will move and they will respect what you say, and they will help to make it better. It's not going to change overnight. It's going to take step by step. You got to take small steps. You got to gain. First, we got to be informed. Then you be involved. Well, let me back up. First, you need to be informed. Then you'll be empowered. Then you can be involved. So those are the steps you need to take. That's the position we need to be. We need to be in to help put ourselves in. And that's how I feel about where we should go as men. And like I said, this is something that's not really talked about across the board. I mean, it's something that's sorely missed. And I'm barely scratching the surface on this topic. Like I said, there's local politics, and then there's state, then there's national politics as well. There's tiers to it. But like I said, first off, immediately, what's going to make the most immediate change is getting involved in your local politics. That's going to change your everyday. That's going to change your everyday. You getting involved in local politics, right? That's going to change the police pulling people over, randomly pulling people over. That's going to change the heavy stops and questioning and checks on one demographic of people in the city versus another. That's going to change how police approach people, how the police force looks, the attitude of police force to its citizens in the community. That's going to change how people are prosecuted when you have people unequally hypercharged for crimes and offenses, a certain group of people versus another group of people. Once you get involved and you start making and holding these elected officials accountable, you're going to notice those numbers start to change another way. The reason they're able to get away with it is because the people that who do get involved make sure that they represent them and they make sure they keep it off them. But once everybody's involved, everybody's playing the same game with the same equipment, changes drastically, right? Drastic changing. So, once again, this is Jecobie Jones of Faithful Life Ministry. Thank you for stopping by the mail room for another edition of Mail Call Men in Politics. Take care, everybody. See you again next week.